Hi everybody, welcome to my channel today. This video is going to involve two projects, one shorter, one longer. The first one is my mitred-square blanket that I finished for my grandson. Oh, look at the chickens. And that was my gardenia. See y'all later. And here's Leo on the dining room table where he shouldn't be and looking out the window. That's his favorite activity. He is such a wonderful cat and a good friend. Okay, well, let's turn to our projects. Yes, the mitred-square blanket, this is my second one I've made. It turned out really well. And as we start the video, I am finishing the blanket and looking at the trim. There's a finished picture of it after all. And then we're going to look at the Pixel Pictures project that I did after Kate Jackson's example. Here I'm doing the last square of the mitred-square blanket. I have picked up all the stitches from the other two squares, as you see, in kind of an L, and I'm about to start the last square where I will keep reducing straight up the middle right there and end it in the corner. Well, knitting friends out there in YouTube land, I'm here today in the living room because I finished all the squares on my mitred-square blanket. This is the second one of these I've done. Maybe I'll put a little picture for a second of the first one that I did. And I apologize for my gravelly voice. I've not been well this week, but I'm on the mend, So, I have finished the blanket, and today I need to figure out what I want to do for a border. We did this last time, and my favorite way to do this is just to lay the different yarns around next to the blanket and ask myself, is that going to work? Is that not going to work? So let's turn the camera down for just a second and I'll show you my thought process as I figure out what I'm going to do for this very important blanket for my grandson. So here's the blanket. I hope you get a feel for the pattern that's going on. It's a little bit longer this way than it is wide because he's just a little boy still. He just got his first big boy bed recently and I'm quite excited about that. I'm picking off the dog fur. Okay. So the colors that I was using in this blanket, I've got the teal, I've got white, and I just finished the very last square, which must have been that one. No, it was that one up there, was white. I've got some dark green. I told myself I did not want to use white in the border because white gets dirty easily. Now there is only one square of gray as the pattern turned out. That's kind of the other light color. For some reason I had this color in there too, but it was not used in the blanket. And you can tell it's a little jarring. There's a little bit of this light brown. And then this dark variegated brown. Okay, so there's our colors. And as I was looking at them, I kind of knew right away that I wanted this dark green, which I really like, it's very pretty, to be the outside. There's going to be two lines of border here, okay? There's going to be, I'm going to go around with crochet because I don't have a circular needle long enough to encompass all of this. So I'm going to crochet it, and I'm going to have one round first, and then a little picot border or some kind of border, and this will be the outside border. So I just need a color in between the blanket and this dark green. And as I started looking, I looked at those two together. Let's pull this down just a little bit. That doesn't work at all, really, and they're both too dark, and I don't like those two together. Honestly, I probably shouldn't have had them next to each other in the blanket either. I didn't put that much playing into it. So I eliminated that one, although that's probably my favorite color in the blanket. And for the same reason, not this one, because it's too dark. It is a blanket for a little boy, but it's not like he's 16 and out hunting every weekend, so I don't need it to be camo kind of stuff. This clearly doesn't work. And then I thought, well, I think I need something lighter. And so I looked at the gray, but I don't think it helps to tie the blanket together because it's only in there on one square, and that's really because I put an extra row on and I needed an extra color. Actually, I didn't do that right. That should have been a teal. Well, it's too late now. Boy, wow. Shh, don't tell anybody. Okay, so I kind of eliminated that one. And then I thought, well, it could be, I didn't really like the brown either for the same, just a brown just seems kind of dull. I don't know. It's not my favorite color. And then I pulled out the white, which I had just snipped off on the last square because I was convinced I was not going to use white. I didn't want to put something in that would get dirty around the edge. But as soon as I put the white next to the green, I knew that that's exactly the look I'm looking for. Those two as the border. So that's what we're going to do. So my little pea brain is telling me. So I'm going to start. This really should go pretty fast, I think. I try not to crochet too much because my thumbs hurt so bad when I crochet, but this won't be much. And we'll zip around with a little crochet hook, and we'll start up here. I'll just tie this right back onto this white corner and go around. I've left my tails longer this time, and when I'm going to tuck in all the edge tails as I crochet around. I'm going to try to remember to do that this time and be diligent about that. And then when I'm done with the border, I'll turn it over. I have left these long, and I'm going to really put them in well and then snip them close after I have sewn them in and hidden them in all of these ridges. I'm very excited about getting this blanket done. It's been such a fun project, and I'm sure I'll do another one. But the next blanket I'm going to do is going to be for my granddaughter. She's growing up fast too, and I think I'm going to switch to a different pattern, one called the 10-stitch blanket. And I'll leave a link to a website that describes that, and you can also find it on Ravelry, and I'll leave a little iCard to a video that I found out. I haven't started it yet, and I haven't figured out the pattern yet, but I am thinking that, again, this is one that's not hard to do. You start in the center and go out, and you pick up stitches. You don't have to tie on anything at the end, and I really like it. It has a lot of the same happy qualities of this pattern. That just feels good. I hope you really enjoy this blanket. Okay, so I'll get back to you when this blanket is finished and ready to go. And now we'll start our next project, the Pixel Picture Project. Boy, that's a mouthful. This is a lovely window hanging that looks a little bit like fabric and stained glass. Those are my squares. I'm going to show you how I cut them out. Now, I have loved using this cutting mat and that plastic clear ruler and I forget what they call this thing. It's a Fiskars rolling cutter. I got that from Adam, and he had used it a bit, and it has a little bit of rust on it, so it doesn't always cut cleanly. The mat I got secondhand at the thrift store, and the ruler I've had forever. Oh, here's some of that pretty fabric. This is the fabric I got at Hobby Lobby. Yes. Anyway, I'm showing you here how I use the mat to really help me after I cut off that selvage. The boxes on that mat are 1-inch squares, and that's really helpful for eyeballing where to cut. And keeping everything in a straight line, I can line up the top of the ruler with those black lines on the mat and make sure everything is very square. You have to really push down on that cutter to make it work. But it's so much easier. I cannot imagine trying to do this with scissors somehow. I think that would be so difficult. So using some kind of a pattern piece or something, or marking it all with pencil, that would be difficult. So this is such a wonderful and easy way to cut, and it's even easier cutting the blocks the other way. I am cutting 2-inch squares here. If you look carefully at the mat, you can see, right there, I'm keeping the edge of that fabric, which I've got nice and square with the previous cut. I've got it right even with that black line on the mat, and then I'm going to use my ruler to line up 2 inches down 2 of those squares. And then it's easy just to cut all the way down. This will give me a 2-inch strip.
and I'll use that later. I do wish I had a big old table to do this on, and a mat that was twice as big or covered the table. You see how I have to compensate for my rusty cutter. So then I have to pull the fabric up and do the bottom half, which is okay. It just takes a little bit extra trouble, and I'm so not used to that cutter, and I don't do it very well. But it's good enough. It's good enough. Now I have quite a lot of this fabric to cut. There were 7 different types of fabric, and I think I did 1 strip like this of each one, but that's double thickness. And I'm going to go ahead and cut all of that strip, so it'll give me a lot more than I need for the project, so I'll have enough for another project. Well, let's hurry on up through this. You don't need to watch me cut all of this. So we'll get a little quick movement going on. Here I'm cutting the other side of my 2-inch square. See how easy that is? Poop, 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 and you're done. The first part is actually the harder one. And then after I cut them all, I did take a second and make sure that the right sides were all kind of turned the right way in the stack, so I wouldn't get them confused when I was putting them into the project. And then I got a little teeny scrap at the end down here, and I'm going to put it into a little plastic bag with all the other little scraps. There's my stacks. Well, I cut out my piece of interfacing, fusible interfacing. I bought this Heat Bond fusible interfacing. It's extra firm, so I'm hoping it really gives a good solid stiff base to this pixel picture fabric stained glass. Let me show you what I'm talking about again. This is the first one that I made that I really like. I really like the method I chose for mounting it. It was so easy. I'm going to use that again. That's just a little skewer, a bamboo skewer that you use when you make shish kebabs and stuff. We have them in the kitchen. This is just some really strong cotton, kind of thin yarn, and a nice sturdy needle to puncture those holes. This has 2-inch squares, so this is 14 inches by 14 inches. This is a good, it'll shrink up when I do the stitching, but right now this is a very good size window hanging. So this is the fun and creative part, although I enjoy the whole process, but this is the part where we get to decide what goes where. I'm going to put the squares close by. That's kind of my wonky one. I decided on a pink. I looked at my other one that I made, and I liked the pink. That's a thin pink seersucker. That's what that fabric is. And then here's some kind of deep purple. You got to have a variety of tone, I think. Hope that's not too much polka dot. Well, this has kind of like little ovals on it, and this has little squares. This is like party confetti. Okay. Like Kate she seems to like keep the lighter colors in the middle and work to the outside, but she has a huge assortment of squares of all different fabric, and I don't have that much. Because it's a 7x7, I think I'm going to try to use 7 of each color. And I have 7 colors, and that should give me some balance without having it to be too patterned. I really like, this is more of a peach than a pink. My iron is over here, getting warm. Make sure I don't have any that are next to each other that are the same. I do want to try to keep the darker ones maybe a little bit more to the outside. Maybe I should put them on. See, that one has an up and down or sideways pattern. Maybe I should put them on, put all 7 colors on, and then do another round, if you know what I mean. I wonder if I should do kind of 7 in the middle-ish, and then work out from there. Now this gives me lots of options, because some of these are quite dark with all the red, and then some of them are much are a little bit lighter. There were some that were in here that were like that one. I really like that one a lot. Okay, there's my 7. I feel like I'm playing chess. I was trying to avoid getting like the bishop move here with this and then this up here. Same here. I'm trying to get more of a offset. And then I think I'll turn this one this way. Ended up getting a little bit too close to the selvage there, but that's okay. There's a lighter one too. With this one, it's hard to tell what's the front and the back a little bit. $13, I'm missing one. Oh, I don't have a second one of this. Okay. So now I'd rather have this here than have it right next to. Those two are not the same, but they're a bit similar. Probably need to go in order over here. I do not have an order. No, I don't want those beside each other either. Tricky is staring at me. Tricky, do you need to go outside? Tricky needs to go outside. She just told me. I'll be right back. Okay. Okay, I don't think I haven't done another one of these. As you might have noticed by this point, this is kind of video to nap by. So if you are feeling snoozy watching this, just go ahead and close your eyes and lie down on the couch and take a little nap, because when you wake up in a few minutes, nothing important will have happened. So please don't feel like you have to watch it all unless you're going to make this project, in which case you might want to watch. I like that a lot. There's not any pattern to it, but there's a good scattering of pieces. I think that's going to be fine. And I've got enough squares to do another one, I think. Or pretty close to it. Maybe not enough of the purple, but enough of everything else. Isn't that great? Okay, now I'm going to tidy them up, make sure they're all touching and there's no gaps, not too much overlap. And then I'll iron it down very carefully. All right, the ironing is done. Now I can lift it up and you can see, let me back up the camera just a hair. You can see a little bit what it's going to look like. Now there's a lot of interesting stitching that's going to happen. You can see how these are going to pop out, those reds. I want to talk about some of the spots in here. You'll notice that there's a few gaps where you can see the interfacing, and actually that's better, a little bit better if it's a teeny gap, than something like this where I have too much overlap. This blue piece was too big. I'm going to snip that off because I don't want any raw edges showing. And the kind of stitching you do is so fascinating. I just really thank Kate Jackson for doing this on her channel. You fold over like this, and you do that all the way down, nice and straight. And then you sew a very thin line of sewing, straight sewing down here that will encapsulate these raw edges, okay, and make it look very tidy. And then you do that here and here and here, all the way across. There'll be 6 of them. Then I turn the fabric, and this is a little harder, but not much harder, and I turn it again and run the same stitching the other way so that every single raw edge is tucked into a nice seam that you can't even see, okay? And then I'll turn it over and I'll finish off, I'll tuck over the outside edge and stitch it down as well. And then it'll be done. So there's just not really any huge stitching to be done, but a spot like this, it would be difficult to get that enclosed in that line of stitching. So I'm going to reduce that just a little bit. This is, I just love doing this. This is so much fun. I'm going to give it one more pressing to make sure that they're all nailed down really solid to that interfacing in the back. And again, you can see what my little one up there looks like. This one's going to be a good bit bigger though. As you can see, quite a bit bigger. Those were 1.5-inch squares when I cut them, and there's only 5 of them. These are 2-inch squares when I cut them, and there's 7 of them each way. All right. Okay, I want you to see the seam I'm putting on there. It's quite close to the edge. Let's see, did it work? Yes, I think it worked pretty well. I think it caught everything without taking up too much space. I got a few stray threads hanging out, and I'm going to have to tend to them later. Okay, so we'll keep on going. Now, if you're wondering, what am I looking at to get that narrow of a seam allowance there on the edge? I am watching the edge of my fabric, and you see how it's partway in between the needle and the little edge of that oval opening. You can see that little dark spot right there, which is my machine on the side of the fabric. And I try to make sure that that line of fabric goes through that spot. I'm really watching here, not watching the needle and not watching anything else. The other thing is that this interfacing really does fold well. It wants to fold on the seam that you have it on. So I'm on the second one now. You can see the first one there. These chickens are covering up some bad editing work. I apologize. Okay, I've gotten the stitching done this way, long ways, and I've got all 7 of those long panels done. Now I'm going to turn it 90 degrees and I'm going to fold this way. And I want to make sure that I just think it's important to make sure that all of these seams are turned the same way as you go down. It's not a big deal, I guess, but it would make it look more consistent, I think, when you're looking through it from the front into the sunlight. I'm going to make my seams a little bit deeper this time. I had a couple of spots in here where the fabric didn't the fabric did catch. It always caught, but that it wasn't fully enclosed because it was too long. You can see just barely a little bit there. Just a teeny bit through here. It's so little you could almost pull the threads off, and I may do that. It's not a huge deal, it's not really very obvious, but I really didn't want any of that, so I'm going to make them just a little bit. That's my minimalist, you know, trying to keep it as teeny as possible, but that's not really helpful when it makes it turn out badly. So beware of that if you're doing this project. All right, I've got all my interior stitch work done. Isn't it looking tidier and better? Oh, and I thought I would mention one thing that my husband gave me is these little snips. They're just easier to manage, faster than trying to get your finger. I mean, I'm used to scissors, they're fine too. But these are really fun, and they're smaller. You can use them to reach underneath your presser foot and things like that. They're good for getting close. So he ordered 3 or 4 of these online for $6 or something like that, and he gave me one. Yeah, I like it. Anyway, now I'm going to go around the edge and get a finished edge, tuck everything under, and then actually I think I'm going to iron this first because it's kind of foldy. It's a good thing to do. All right, I got all the stitching done. Doesn't it look like a little mini quilt? This is what the back side looks like. Now I did just turn it down once here. Remember, this is not anything that's going to be worn. It really is never going to be washed. So that's just the fusible interfacing. This is the non-fusible side, obviously. So you want to make sure you get interfacing that's only fusible on one side. I've got one stray thread. There we go. So now I'm going to do the little stitching that's going to hold it onto its mini dowel and make it hang in the window. Yeah, I'm very, very pleased with that. I think that if you look at the purple is well scattered. If you look at the sea blue is well scattered. I think it turned out pretty good. Okay, I wasn't planning on doing a YouTube video today, so I apologize that I look a little ratty. I should have taken a shower first and all that rot, but I would rather do this stuff than go bathe. That's just how I am. Okay, so let me do the stitching, and then it'll be time for lunch. That's all. This is all that I did this morning. Okay. Okay, where did it go? Here it is. This is what I'm using. This is made by Lily. It's 100% mercerized cotton, size 3. But this has been sitting in an old sewing box for decades. I don't know where it came from, but it's just nice and thick, and it's white, and I think it does the job really well. Oh, now I need to figure out which way this should hang. Let me ponder this for a minute. I'll get back to you. Okay, I think I figured out. Because I changed my seam allowance just a hair, it's a little bit rectangular. You really can't tell, but it's a little bit longer this way than it is wide. And I've decided I want it to hang long ways like this, if that makes a difference. I'm also going to ended up with 3 of those really bright squares at the top. I'm going to put them up there. I like that. And then this is a nice grounding color in this corner. All right, so now I've got 2 of these little wooden containers. I got them at the craft store. And I keep large needles, yarning needles, that kind of stuff in there. And I wrote on the top, this one says large, and then this one says small. So if you have spare needles lying around you don't have a place for, and you know they're going to end up in the bottom of your sewing basket, something like this is a good idea. I used to have a clear plastic one, but it died. So I have blunt end needles, and I have sharp ones. Now, where did my sharp one go? I don't see it. Let me go hunt for my sharp needle. This one will do nicely. It's got a nice big eye and a nice sharp tip. Okay, so I'm going to put a hole in the center of each square across the top, close to the top, just underneath the stitch line, but through only one layer of fabric plus interfacing. And I'm going to go ahead and put my cotton on here while I do it. There's no need to do it twice. So I'm going to need a good bit of this. I'm going to look at, you can watch me figure this out, if I can figure it out. Okay, so here's my little skewer or dowel. I took a sharp kitchen knife and cut off the pointy end, and it's just the same width as my hanging, which is another reason to do the narrower side on the top. I do think it'll be long enough on my smaller one that I made. The dowel is a good bit longer. Actually, I cut off a good bit of it because it was too long. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to knot the end of this and go through and go up and down and up and down. Is that right? Yes. And up and down and up and down and up, down and up and down. Okay, so generally I need that much, but I'm going to cut off more. Of course, you always want to leave extra. You get a good bit extra. I might decide I want that dowel to hang up higher or whatever. Now, I don't have another suction cup. I'm probably going to, but people may not really need a suction cup or want that, so I'm not going to worry about selling that with it. Okay. Oh, that's my iron. Oh, phooey. That was through, and then it decided to come back out. Okay, let's get a nice, I want a nice, secure, large knot on the other end. So I'm going to do it once. I'm going to do it 3 times. I'm planning probably to take this to the farmer's market tomorrow and hopefully sell it tomorrow or another day. It's Memorial Day weekend, so over here in the States, so I might actually sell it. Okay, so I want this one to come in through the back. So the knot will be on the back. They're all going to come in through the back. Well, wish I could do it in the front, but that's just not how it ended up. Okay, so we'll just do it this way. I don't know why I'm doing this on the towel still. I don't think I'm going to iron it again. Now, you may think this is kind of silly how I'm doing this, but I'm a very, very visual person, and I have to see how it's going together to make sure that I do it the right way. See, I didn't do that the right way. I want to have them all looped the same way. It's not like I couldn't take it out and slip the dowel out, but I do think this time, because I'm going to sell this and I want it to be a little sturdier, I'm going to take some, I hope it's not dried up and dead. This is super fabric adhesive, and I'm probably going to put a little dot, once I get everything where I want it, put a little dot on the back where this yarn thread, cotton thread, is crossing the back of the dowel, and put a little dot there and adhere this yarn, this thread, to the back. So it doesn't shift around, and then the dowel won't come out either. Okay, folks, as I thread that yarn through there, we're almost done with this project. Don't give up yet. This one is leaning over a little bit. I guess ideally you want for the peak of this yarn up here to line up with the seam that you have here. And so I think that's something I'm going to note and try to make it do that so that it's not pulling over. Okay, so now let's do another knot here. And it's still, even after I get this knot in, it's very adjustable. Okay, so I don't need this needle anymore. Let's put it up before I lose it. Ouch. A little extra. Okay. Now we may need to fiddle with it. Again, I'm not going to make you watch all this. Okay, let's see if this gluey thing works. If the gluey thing turns out horrible, I may ruin it, which would be awful, but we're going to try not to. Okay. Let's get this down where we want it. Okay, I'll show you later. All right, so far the glue has worked. Now I just put it on, and it was a little, nervy, but I do think, let me get that back out. I do think if you are a crafter who works with fabric at all, this is a very useful thing to have. You can see I've used a lot of it. I don't remember what all I've used it on, but I've used it on a lot of different projects, and it always surprises me. I'm like, oh, I need to fix some fabric onto something, and then I realize I have just the right thing. So if you don't have that, look for it. I think I found it in Michael's or something. And I probably had that tube for a year or two, and it's still just fine. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Pretty good. I'm pleased with that. I have to retie that knot. I was not paying attention to that knot. Anyway, I'm relatively pleased with that. I'll put another string along the top for hanging, and then we'll be done. And I'll put it into a little plastic bag so that when I take it to the market, but I'm going to keep it like this until it dries. Yeah, okay. Thank you, friends, for joining me today. I know that was a long video, and I hope it was worth it if you watched it till the end. This is such a fun project, and they turn out so beautifully. So do leave a comment and let me know if you think you're going to try it. Oh, there's the gardenia again. I couldn't resist. She is so beautiful this year. Bye-bye. See you next time.